I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings in my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, which airs out of the People's Republic of Ann Arbor every Sunday afternoon starting at 2 p.m., which you can listen to live and free by going to davejanda.com and hitting the Listen Live button. We're with you there. But where the vast majority of our content, which could never be aired on any social media platform, or frankly on the radio because of the FCC choke points, the vast majority of our content that puts you months and years ahead of the globalist constructed curve that ends in a brick wall with the shattering of your freedoms and your liberties is housed at davejanda.com. Tremendous amount of free public information. We have our ticker that is the only kind of news ticker on the planet on the internet where it's the news ticker from hell as it relates to the deep state. Every one of the points that we bring out on that news ticker, they don't want you to know about. It's free. And if you go through the news ticker, oh, that's something I want to hear more about, you hit it and it'll take you to a link. But where the vast majority of our content resides that has profound positive impacts for folks is on the subscription side. We have a subscription side so we can maintain the website. If you look, we've had this AWS, Amazon Web Services takedown, the Cloudflare takedown. Our subscribers will tell you our website was up 24/7. Even during those events when many thousands of websites were down, ours kept ticking like the Energizer Bunny. Now, that's not just luck. We have a phenomenal IT team that have put all types of stopgap protections in that site, and that costs money. And that's what the 30 cents a day goes for, $9 a month. It's month-to-month sign-up. We hope you become part of our Freedom family. During this holiday season, we have an opportunity to get together with friends and families. And I want to address a subject that comes up, but doesn't get the attention it deserves. And that's about a life's plan. A plan that for all of us had as its foundations in our education and the education system. Many people believe that the longer you go to school, the more degrees you get from an accredited university, the better off you'll be on every plane, and the smarter you are. I'm going to ruffle a bunch of feathers here. I completely disagree with that. Now, granted, with my background of being a double major in chemistry and economics at a fairly well-known university with a great reputation, Bucknell University, and then going to medical school at Northwestern University Medical School in Chicago, and then doing my internship and fellowship at the University of Michigan down the street here in Ann Arbor, and then doing my fellowship at Western University in London, Ontario, Canada. Got me a lot of pieces of paper with my name on it. But through my life's road, and it's a long road because I'm old, most of the smartest people I have come in contact with in my life didn't have pieces of paper, diplomas with their names on it. They graduated from high school and set out in life. And they built and have great lives. Because they put their time and their effort and their money, and let's face it, to get those degrees, it's off the charts at this point. It almost reeks of a money laundering operation, higher education these days in many respects. with what people are paying for tuition and room and board and fees. But in my life, I had the opportunity of growing up in the southwest suburbs of Chicago and on the south side of Chicago, where a big chunk of my family resided. So when I wasn't in the southwest suburbs, which is a drastically different education system on many levels, I was on the south side where my parents grew up, okay, on 35th Street on the south side. And frankly, it's where I got a huge education about the streets, about, yes, how to protect yourself, but how to deal with confrontation. How to work in an environment to help others, which was a lot trickier than the southwest suburbs. And my dad ran a commercial construction company, built big buildings in the city. But from a very young age, he would take me on weekends to the job sites. And he would have me hang out with the electricians and the plumbers and the laborers and the masonry folks and the HVAC folks and the steel workers. Not the superintendent of the job site or the like. But that's where he'd say, hey, Dave, you go hang with these guys. And none of those folks had college degrees or graduate school degrees. But they were some of the most smartest people I've ever come in contact with. And unfortunately, in our society, to a degree, those folks are not held up to the level they should be as far as making a positive impact. Those folks that I grew up with on the job sites when I was from a little kid all the way up, those buildings are still standing. People are still living and working in those buildings. People are still depending on those buildings, decades in age. And if it weren't for those folks, it'd just be a big pile of rocks or grass there. So, and when I look at some folks that are my friends, whether it's Leo or Oscar or Hector or Ken or Martine or Manos or whoever, all those folks, they build things with their hands that will stand long after all of us are gone. They don't have college degrees or graduate school degrees. You know, Martine, with his landscaping abilities and architecture abilities that were self-taught, provides tremendous positive benefits to all who have eyes who can see the creations that he does with his landscape. Or Manos, who climbs trees and brings down trees so that they don't impact some of the building that some of, like Leo or Hector or Oscar have built, or fall across roads or fall on people's possessions. They have enormous impact, positive, on society, but we tend to not give them the due. And you know, dozens of people in your life that fill the similar role. During my last 3 months of medical school, when I kind of could have just coasted, I ended up, and I was the only person at Northwestern who I think has maybe ever done this. Surely was in my class and the classes around me before and after. I worked at Cook County Hospital on the south side of Chicago, a knife and gun club, essentially. I learned a tremendous amount. But it's safe to say every person that I encountered in the trauma unit that had either been shot or stabbed, or the groups, gangs that they were with, none of them had any kind of, if you asked them, what's your plan? Are you going to go to college? Come on. Their plan was to survive. But it's very interesting. Some of the smartest people I have ever met in my life were those gang members. I remember one conversation. When we were on call, we do a 24-hour, 36-hour call. And in that time period, on a Friday or Saturday night, we take care of a dozen people who had been shot, a dozen people who had been stabbed. We ran kind of like the trauma unit there had 3 operating rooms in the same, operating tables in the same room, and the trauma ICU where folks would go to recover after their surgery. It was like a MASH unit that you saw on TV. When we'd leave call and go back to our cars, it wasn't the security guards that would walk us to our cars. First day I was there, the chief resident said to me, Dave, when you go to your car, have one of the gang members walk you to your car. You mean security? No, don't do that. Have one of the gang members. You'll be much safer. Okay, so on one of these walks back to my car, I said to the gang member walking me back, I go, why are you doing this? I could have had the security guy walk me to the car. And he said, I want you protected, okay? He goes, because you took care of my brothers late last night and saved their lives. And I want to make sure that if something happens to me tomorrow, that you're safe and you're there for me. And I said, so, okay, what's your plan? Do you plan on being in this gang your whole life? Do you plan on not going to college, but moving out of the city, or what's your plan? And he said, Doc, my plan is to survive. And my plan is to provide for my family. It's very interesting. And now we've seen a bit of a change in philosophy where people are questioning the role of getting college degrees. And maybe it might be better to work in a trade, to be an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, a HVAC person, someone that can be there when the lights go out or the pipe breaks. It's very interesting, the change that's occurred. I practiced orthopedic surgeon for 32 years. And when folks would ask me what I did for a living, I would tell them I'm a carpenter. Essentially, orthopedic surgeons are carpenters for humans who work on humans. But it was very interesting, the reaction I would get when I would tell people that I was a carpenter. Not all, but the vast majority of folks, you could tell, treated me differently. Maybe they didn't realize they were, but they did. Why? The vast majority of carpenters have a profound effect, positive effect on society. The good news is that there is now this metamorphosis of thought, as I mentioned, where folks in the trades are getting far more acknowledgement, let's say. A guy who's pointed this out for many years is a guy on TV, Mike Rowe, who had a series and still runs called Dirty Jobs, where he highlights people that have jobs that entail folks that don't need college degrees to do or have. And he highlights the importance of them. He's done that. I think he got kind of discounted and But now that entire series takes on a whole new importance about being so far ahead of the curve. Recently, right down the street, the CEO of Ford Motor Company, Jim Farley. The United States is in trouble. The Ford CEO can't find people that are trained through trade schools in being mechanics. They need 5,000 of them. From Zero Hedge, Ford Motor Company CEO Jim Farley has sounded an alarm about the state of the U.S. job market, saying Ford has been unable to fill 5,000 mechanics jobs. And those jobs pay well, $120,000 a year. Quote, "We're in trouble in our country. We're not talking about this enough," said Farley. He said the shortage of qualified manual laborers isn't confined to Ford, but is something businesses across the nation are struggling with. We have over 1 million openings in critical jobs, emergency services, trucking, factory workers, plumbers, electricians, and tradesmen. It's a very serious thing, and we don't have the trade schools. We're not investing in education, a generation of people like my grandfather who had nothing but built middle-class life and future for their families by being involved in the trades. I mentioned my family on the south side, on the 35th, between Pulaski and Kedzie Avenue in Chicago. There was a trade school there called Washburn Trade School. And every time we drove by it, my dad would say, "David, that right there, Washburn Trade School, is the most important university," he called it, university in the city of Chicago. No, not the University of Illinois at Chicago or the University of Chicago or Northwestern, but Washburn. Because without the graduates of that school, the lights don't go on, the water doesn't flow, the toilets don't flush, and everything falls apart. Which brings me to this post, and I want to read it to you. It's called Wise Words About a Life's Plan. And over the holidays, when you have that youngster, high school student, middle school. As opposed to asking, well, where are you planning on going to college? Maybe a more appropriate question these days is, tell me about, what's your plan? What's your plan after high school? My name is Frank. I'm 64 and a retired electrician. 42 years I spent running wires through houses, fixing breakers, making sure people had light in their kitchens and heat in their winters. Never once did anyone ask me where I went to college. Mostly, they just wanted to know if I could get the power back on before their ice cream melted. Last May, I was at my granddaughter Emily's school career day. You know, the drill, doctors, lawyers, a software guy in a slick suit talking about, quote, scaling startups, end quote. I was the only one there with a tool belt and work boots. When it was my turn, I told the kids, quote, I don't have a degree, I've never sat in a lecture hall, but I've wired schools, hospitals, and your principal's house. And when the hospital generator failed during a snowstorm in 1998, I was the one in the basement with a flashlight, keeping the lights on for the newborn babies upstairs. End quote. The kids leaned forward. They had questions, real ones. Quote, how do you fix stuff in the dark? You make a lot of money? Did you ever get zapped? Yeah, once. And it'll curl your hair. When the bell rang, one boy hung back. Small kid, freckles, hoodie, too big for him. He mumbled, quote, my uncle's a plumber. And people laugh at him because he didn't finish high school. But he's the only one in the family who can fix anything, end quote. I looked that boy in the eye and said, quote, kid, your uncle's a hero. When your toilet overflows at midnight, Harvard ain't sending anyone. But a plumber is there to fix it, end quote. Here's the thing nobody told me when I was young. The world doesn't run without tradespeople. You can have all the engineers you want, but if nobody builds the house, wires the power, or lays the pipes, those blueprints just sit in a drawer. We've made it sound like trades are what you do if you can't go to college, instead of a path you choose because you like working with your hands, solving problems, and seeing your work stand solid for decades on end. For years after high school, some kids walk away with diplomas. Others walk away with zero debt, a union card, and a skill they can take anywhere in the world. And guess what? When your furnace dies in January, it's not the diploma that saves you. A few weeks ago, that same freckled kid's mom stopped me at the grocery store. She said, quote, you probably don't remember, but you told my son trades are important. Well, guess what? He's shadowing his uncle this summer. And it's the first time I've ever seen him excited about anything in years, end quote. And that's the part we forget for some kids. Knowing their path is respected changes everything. It's not about just fixing wires or pipes. It's about pride. And it's about purpose. The kind that sticks with you long after the job's done. So next time you meet a teenager, don't just ask, quote, where are you going to college, end quote. Ask, quote, what's your plan, end quote. And if they say, quote, I'm leaning to weld, or I'm starting an apprenticeship, smile big and say, that's fantastic. We're going to need you. Because we will. More than ever. And when the lights go out, you'll be glad that they showed up. Profound words. So, over the holidays, when it comes up with the younger folks in your family, ask them, what's your plan? And they might feel obligated to say, well, I guess I got to go to college. And that's where you step in. Say, well, that's an option, but there are other options. Have you ever thought about the trades? Electrician, plumber, heating, ventilating? builder, it can be the most important conversation you ever had with that young person. It might do exactly what happened to that young boy. Put a fire under him. To do what they feel they want to do, but that what they feel might not be acceptable. Wise words about a life plan. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail, whatever that line you're pushing, to make a better society for each and every person that we come in contact with. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Join us. Until next time, be safe and dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for joining me today.